All right, let's tackle a huge question, one that sits at the heart of pretty much every single debate about freedom. Where do our rights actually come from? I mean, really, are they just words on a piece of paper handed to us by a government? Or do they come from somewhere else entirely? The material we're digging into today argues that getting the answer to this one question right, well, it changes absolutely everything. So let's get into it. To kick things off, just imagine this for a second. You wake up tomorrow and poof, the government has banned free speech. It's illegal. The question is, did that right, your fundamental right to speak your mind, did it actually disappear into thin air? Or did the government just trample all over a line they never had the authority to cross in the first place? That's the core puzzle we're going to unpack.
Okay, so the way our source material breaks this down is by presenting two totally different ways of looking at this. It's what it calls the fundamental divide, and which side you land on pretty much shapes your entire view of government and freedom. So on one hand, you've got the view that government is basically a dispenser of rights. It hands them out, it can change the rules, it can even take them away. In that world, we the citizens are kind of just passive recipients of whatever they decide. But the other view, the one this source really dives into, it flips that script completely. It says no, rights come first. They exist before any government does. And that means the government's only job is to be a safeguard. And in that model, citizens, well, they're not passive at all. They're active guardians.
And check out this analogy. It really helps make sense of that second view. It says to think of something like the Constitution not as a document that's giving you rights, but more like a protective fence. Its whole purpose is to be a barrier that keeps the government from stomping all over the freedoms that you already have just by virtue of being human.
So to really get this idea of pre-existing rights, we have to talk about a very specific and very powerful word, unalienable. The entire justification for this way of thinking really hinges on what this one word means.
So where does this idea come from? Why would our rights be inherent? Well, according to the source material, the justification is a theological one. It points directly to the book of Genesis and the idea that human beings are made in the image of God. That concept that we have a kind of divine imprint is presented as the ultimate source of our dignity and our worth, a worth that exists totally separate from and totally above any government on earth. And this brings us to the core idea. If your worth is inherent, then your rights are unalienable. And here's just a fantastic way to think about it. They are built in, not bolted on. See, they're not some accessory that a government can attach or remove whenever it feels like it. They are part of the very fabric of who you are. Now, a government can absolutely violate them, for sure, but it can never, ever truly erase them.
Okay, I know this might all be sounding a little philosophical, right? But the source is really clear that this isn't just some abstract idea for a classroom. Believing this has profound, real-world consequences. It fundamentally changes how you see the world and how you act in it.
So here's how that shift actually plays out. First, your whole posture changes. When you truly believe your rights are built in, you stop living in fear of people who try to control you. Second, your perspective shifts. You're no longer sitting around waiting for someone to give you permission to be free. And third, your standard changes. You start judging every law and every policy with a new question. Is this protecting a right that already exists, or is it just granting a privilege that can be taken away? And this quote just sums up that whole transformation perfectly. You go from being a passive recipient to being a guardian. It totally reframes freedom. It's not a gift, it's a responsibility. And according to this view, liberty only survives because ordinary people, like you and me, stay alert and actually protect it. So, as we wrap up, the source material doesn't just leave us with a bunch of information. No, it leaves us with a challenge. It's one final thought experiment, and it's designed to make you really consider what you believe about all of this. So here it is. Think about this. If every government on Earth just disappeared tomorrow, which human rights would still exist? And, maybe more importantly, why? Your answer to that question really reveals everything about where you believe rights come from, deep down. Does our value depend on a system that we create, or is it something more permanent, something built right into the fabric of who we are?